question 1, it says Mrs. Smith wrote 4 less than 3 times a number is no more than 20 on the board. If x represents the number, which inequality is a correct translation of this statement? So we have 4, then we have that phrase less than, 3 times a number is no more than 20. Okay, so remember this less than phrase means this is going to be the opposite order. So instead of 4 minus 3x, it's going to be 3x minus 4, opposite the order of the wording, is no more than. So no more than means that's the most I can have. I can only go down from there. So it's a less than or equal to sign, and it's no more than 20. So 3x minus 4 less than or equal to 20, choice 3. Number 2, what is the solution set of the inequality? So we need to solve for x. I'm going to start by adding 3 to both sides. I get 5 plus 3, so 8 is greater than 2x. Divide by 2, divide by 2. 4 is greater than x, or I can read this as x is less than 4 if I read it with x on the left. Either way, you should have gotten choice 4. Number 3, which graph represents the solution set for 2x minus 4 is less than or equal to 8 and x plus 5 is greater than or equal to 7. So I'm going to solve each separately to start. So I cross out the 4 by adding it over. I have 2x is less than or equal to 8 plus 4, which is 12. Divide by 2. I get x is less than or equal to 6. And now I have to go back up and finish solving this side. Subtract the 5, subtract the 5. X is greater than or equal to 7 minus 5, which is 2. So x is less than or equal to 6, and x is greater than or equal to 2. That's my inequality answer. It is asking me, however, to look at it on a graph. So if I graphed this, I would have 2 smaller than 6, so 2 would go first, 6 would go off to the right. They're both closed circles. And because it's an and, it's telling me I'm greater than 2 and less than 6, so I should be shading in between these two numbers. So the shading from 2 to 6 with included closed circles is choice 2. Okay, number 4, which value of x is in the solution set? So again, I'm solving for x, and this one I'm going to subtract 5. Then I get 4/3 x is less than 17 minus 5, which gives me 12. Now I want to undo this multiplication of 4/3, so I'm going to multiply by its reciprocal to get 1x. If I multiply the left by the reciprocal, I also have to multiply the right side of this inequality by its reciprocal. 12 times 3/4 is going to give me 9. So let's think about this for a second. If x is less than 9, that means I have an open circle at 9, and I'm shading to the left, and that's my solution, everything in this shaded area. They want to know which of these values is in the solution set. Well, 9 can't be an answer because it's an open circle. 12 would be somewhere over here. 16 would be out here. They're also not in the solution set. However, 8 would fall into the shaded area, so choice 1 is our answer. Okay, question 5. At the Math Fun Park, customers may ride the Speedy Demon Coaster if they are greater than 54 inches tall and if they are at least 14 years of age. If H represents height and A represents age, which choice best describes the conditions for riding the Speedy Demon roller coaster? Okay, so if H is representing height and they have to be greater than 54 inches, that's going to be just my greater than symbol, so H is greater than 54. They use the word and, so I need to use the word and A is representing age, and it tells me they have to be at least 14 years of age. So at least means that's the least they can be, that's the youngest, but they can be older than 14 or equal to it, so greater than or equal to, this gives us choice 2. Okay, question 6 talks about a 9th grade class at a local high school purchasing a park permit. The permit is going to cost us $250 for the picnic. Each 9th grader attending the picnic will pay 75 cents. Each guest will pay $1.25. Then they go on to tell me there are 200 9th graders, which inequality could be used to determine the number of guests needed to cover the cost. Okay, so let's break this down. If every 9th grader is paying 75 cents and there's 200 of them, the 75 cents is going to multiply with the 200. So that being my first step, I can already get rid of choices 1 and 2. I know it's got to be choices 3 or 4. Now, I know that the number of guests is being represented by X, and all guests are paying $1.25. So I'm going to add to this $1.25 times X, and we want to make sure that we have at least $250 because that's the cost. So it has to be greater than or equal to 50. Choice 4, 3 would be subtracting, but we're adding them together because we're hoping that together, when they both pay for their ticket prices, that will cover the cost of the permit. So we add them up. Question 7. If 5 times a number is less than or equal to 55, what is the greatest possible integer value of the number? So let's first write this out as an inequality. So 5 times a number, let's let x be the number. So 5x is less than or equal to 55. Okay, so I'm going to divide by 5, divide by 5. I get x is less than or equal to 11. So the greatest possible integer, well, again, it's always helpful to look at this on a number line. Closed circle at 11, everything less than 11 would be a solution. So if you think about the greatest number, well, the greatest number is going to be 11 because it's included at 11. 12 is not in the solution set, and 10 and 9, although they are solutions, they're not the greatest solution. Okay, question 8 is a fractional inequality. The first thing I want to do is identify what my LCD is. So between 3 and 5, I would have an LCD of 15. So if I take m over 5, which is greater than or equal to negative 2 over 3 plus 3m over 5, I'm going to take that LCD and I'm going to multiply every single term by the LCD. So you'll notice I'm using a different color here to really highlight that first step. Then what I need to do is now divide the numerators by the denominators. So 5 divides into itself once and into 15 3 times. 3 divides into itself once and into 15 5 times. And 5 divides into itself once and into 15 3 times. So if I rewrite what I have left, I have 3 times m, which is greater than or equal to 5 times negative 2 plus 3 times 3m. Okay, so I'm going to do a little simplifying here. 3m is greater than or equal to negative 10 plus 9m. Okay, if I subtract the 9m on both sides, 3 minus 9 is going to give me negative 6m, which is greater than or equal to negative 10. If I divide by negative 6, now because I'm dividing by a negative, remember my inequality has to change direction. So instead of greater than or equal to, it's going to be less than or equal to. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 10 divided by 6 can simplify to be 5 over 3. So m is less than or equal to 5/3. That's choice 3 for number 8. Okay, I'm just going to erase a little bit here so we can move on now to question 9. Okay, so for question 9, it tells me that the distance of a free-falling object has traveled and is being modeled by this equation. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite that a little bit bigger. D is equal to 1/2 a times t squared. They tell me a is acceleration due to gravity. T is the amount of time the object has fallen. And I'm asked to solve for t in terms of a and d. So I want to isolate t. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to get rid of this 1/2 by multiplying both sides of my equation by 2. Okay, I get 2d is equal to a times t squared. Recognizing that a is multiplying this term t squared, I'm going to divide by it. Okay, and then 2d divided by a is equal to t squared. To undo a square, I have to square root. Technically, there would be a plus or minus here. However, we are talking about time. So since time is only going to be referred to in the positive, we're going to leave it as the positive square root of 2d over a, which is equal to my time. And that comes out to be choice 2. Okay, so for number 10, they want us to find the solution to the inequality. Since we have this negative 2 out here, the first step that we want to do is take this negative 2 and distribute it to both terms in there. So we're going to have a negative 2x, and a negative 2 times a negative 5 is going to give me a positive 10. And we're going to keep our symbol, that's going to be less than 4. Then what we want to do is we want to subtract 10 on both sides. So
So we're left with our negative 2x, and 4 minus 10 is going to give us negative 6. Now my last step is I want to get rid of this negative 2, so I'm going to divide by a negative 2 and divide by a negative 2. I'm going to be left with just an x. And remember, we divided by a negative, so I need to make sure I flip my sign. And then negative 6 divided by a negative 2 is going to give me a positive 3. So they are asking us this in interval notation. So maybe if I just draw a graph, it might kind of help me figure out how I want to do this. So 3 was my solution, but I know it's values that are greater than 3. So if it's greater than 3, that's what your graph would look like. Our lowest value here is 3. 3 is not included, so since it's not included, we're going to use our parenthesis, and that's going to go until positive infinity, because this is going all the way out to positive infinity. Again, infinity, we cannot include it, so we're going to use a parenthesis, and our choice is going to be choice 1. Okay, let's just clean this up so we can see this. All right, Jeffrey is carrying around change in his pocket that totals $1.65. He has 6 fewer dimes than nickels. Which equation could be used to determine the number of nickels and in his pocket? So if I wanted to, I could set up a total, a type number value total chart. So type number value total, I'm just going to abbreviate. And my types of coins I have are nickels and dimes. So they tell us if we look back, he has 6 fewer dimes than nickels. So we're comparing to our nickels. So our nickels is going to be n, and then our dimes is going to be 6 fewer than. So we're going to take our n and subtract 6 from that, for 6 fewer than. Value, you're just going to fill in, dimes are 5 cents. I'm sorry, nickels are 5 cents and dimes are 10 cents. And then to get our total column, remember we want to do our number times our value, and that's how we're going to get our total. So our total column is going to be 0.05n, and then our bottom one is going to be 0.10 times that number, which was n minus 6. Now that that's set up, we could go back to our question and see what they're telling us. So they're saying that altogether his change totals $1.65. So if we add up our total of nickels and our total of dimes, we should get $1.65. So if I want to write an equation to help me solve this, I would have 0.05n plus 0.10 times n minus 6. So just my two totals there, and I want that to add up to $1.65. So they didn't ask you to solve this, they just wanted you to write the equation. So your equation is here for choice 2. All right, if we take a look at number 12, they want to know which of the following values of x is in the solution to the equation. So, since we have one fraction equal to another fraction, I can just cross multiply here. So, if I want to cross multiply these values and cross multiply these values. So, when I cross multiply them, I'm going to have 5 times x minus 6, and that's going to equal to my 6 times x minus 8. Now my next step is I want to make sure that I distribute these. So on this side I'm going to have 5x minus 30. And this side, when I distribute my 6, I'm going to have 6x minus 48. Now I just want to combine my like terms, so I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. On this side, I'm left with a negative 30. If I do 6 minus 5, that's going to be x, and I keep this minus 48. Again, I want to get x by itself, so I'm going to add 48 to both sides. And when I add 48, I'm going to get a value of x equals 18. If I look back at my answers, that would be choice 3. Is my answer. All right, our next question is they asked which number listed below is a rational number. So if we think about it, rational numbers are numbers that are terminating. So we don't want these repeating decimals. Those actually are going to be our irrational numbers. So we could actually type these into your calculator. If you type in the square root of 8, you would get a value of 2.828427, and so on. Since this is a non-terminating, non-repeating decimal, this is irrational. So that's not going to be our choice. If we look at our second option, we had 5 times the square root of 9. So you can type that right into your calculator. Or you know that this is 5 times the square root of 9 is actually 3. So when you do the square root of 9, which is 3 times 5, you're going to get an answer of 15, which is actually a rational number. So that is your answer, choice 2. But let's look at our other options. Option 3 was pi. Pi is actually one of the most famous irrational numbers. You could also type this into your calculator. You get 3.14159 and so on. So that is an irrational number. And if you wanted to type option 4 into your calculator, you would have gotten a value of 8.4852, which again is a non-terminating, non-repeating decimal, so that is an irrational number. So that's why choice 2 was our answer.